Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Monday, September 30th. We are on the Americas account. Let's see what we're going to have here. I have a new plugin that I'm experimenting with where I could drop a marker into a text file when I press like the space button. So it would be an experiment about like, does this space sound, which is very clicky on my keyboard, and I really need to think about buying a different kind of keyboard, but it would have to be some kind of wireless one, but a really quiet one. So if anybody has any suggestions for what is the absolute most quietest mouse and keyboard that you know of, let me know. Doesn't have to be Logitech, I'd kind of prefer if it was, but I'm willing to switch. So Paladin would be Divine Shield, so let's roll this. Warlock class cards. Alright, so we need to play Paladin and get these two things done. And that's all we need to do. Tavern Brawl wise, we're not doing one today because it would be a waste of time. And the solo adventure is happening tomorrow on Wednesday, so no, tomorrow on Tuesday at noon, so I don't want to spend extra time trying to specifically get things. I don't want to waste extra time doing tavern brawls. I suppose I can make the shortcut key any key, and the space button, spacebar is by far the noisiest of all the keys on my keyboard, so I could fix that. I could put it like on the number pad 0 or something. I don't know how useful that really is going to be. It's really just a ongoing effort on my part to have more things integrated into my computer directly in case I don't have my cell phone available to me. Right now, looking at the chat, running the timers are on my cell phone. I'd like a backup system. If I had a third monitor that was dedicated when I'm doing this, so I could have the web peak monitor on the right and then a monitor on the left, I could look at the chat on the monitor on the left, and any kind of timer software that I need. I must move quickly. Just kind of wait here. Let's go through the news, because I guess it's unlikely I'd go through all the news before doing all the daily quests, but if I got it done, it wouldn't really kill me to play off screen for the European account. So, yeah. Any little bit that saves some time and some energy would be great. Gamatsu has an article here for the PS4 and Switch. Auto Chess is coming out for the PS4 and Switch in 2020. This is the Auto Chess that is not I think this is the original creators of Auto Chess, not the Valve version of Auto Chess. Of course, this was a Dota mod originally, and then they branched it off to a standalone game for iOS and Android, and then a PC version is currently being beta tested at the Epic Games Store. So it's kind of crazy to start as a mod and then move your way all the way around to in circles, I guess is the best description.
Converting stored energy.
And so nothing more to do.
Move quickly.
That it's probably a little too late, frankly. In 2020, I don't know how many people are going to play auto chess still. I imagine as many people are still playing Dota, there will be a small contingent of a few thousand, 10, maybe 50,000 players, but I don't know if that will boil down into major numbers or enough sales or enough of a fan base to make it an esport thing. I guess the idea in general you could take from it is because Dota is already a big thing, you could probably have esport events where you show off a Dota game and then you show off an auto chess game. But I don't think that really would work because Dota games are incredibly long. So it'd be the equivalent of showing off an entire football game for 6 hours to 8 hours and then showing off a 5-minute scrimmage. Nobody does that because that's just too much football at one time. Next we have a game on Steam here called Quilly, which looks like a low effort MS Paint game that seems to have stolen art for one of its screenshots, because one of these certainly looks different than the other. This is $1.99 English only. Again, I think there should be a council of quality at this point. I think that's the only thing that would make sense, is allow certain people who have large enough Steam accounts, who also aren't video game critics that are getting free codes, be on this system of this council of quality to look at games pre-release and flag them as we don't feel like this is good enough, or we think this is good enough. That probably would cost Valve some sales in the long run, and it's probably not something that they would want to do, but I think it would make sense. And it would be about the most democratic way to run a storefront you possibly could, which maybe is a bad idea, to run a store democratically. But the truth of the matter is, it's always been a fallacy that consumer demand determines what is available for purchase. It's always been a fallacy. It's always been what can be sold to a consumer and not what does a consumer actually need. Otherwise, commercials wouldn't exist, and everybody wouldn't need to be convinced through commercials to buy things that they don't need. I think that maybe saved me one turn. Next we have a game on Steam called Ink Hero. This looks like it's kind of a low effort, just not visually polished platforming game. It's unimpressive visually, so I really wouldn't want to spend the time in it. It's early access for $3.39. Claims a bunch of language support. Definitely not making it to the fall list. Nothing has made it to the fall list at all today. But today is Monday too, so that kind of makes sense in a small way. That everything, if it came out on the weekend, would be garbage. I think we had a ton of games left over, and I don't think I ever curated those, come to think of it. So we may have quite the collection here of things. I'm just playing all these cards for really no reason. Next we have a game on Steam that's just a bunch of Asian characters. The frame rate looks a little awkward on this, but it does just look like it's kind of a Chinese top-down RPG, Diablo-like type game. This doesn't look terrible, but when you see this, it seems pretty obvious that it was designed for mobile first. English is not supported. It's free, but it has in-app purchases. It's an MMO. And I am not informed enough to make a statement like this, but I suspect and question whether or not the Chinese market single-handedly ruined MMOs as a concept. Let's see. Secrets. Custom Paladin. Let's try this Custom Paladin deck, because we're not playing a lot of cards with Divine Shields in them, and that's what we're trying to play. But yeah, there has been for a couple of decades now a significant amount of Chinese MMOs in particular that are bad. So MMOs are popular, certainly, but the quality and
I will fight with honor.
Quality of them has been really, really bad. On the other hand, I think maybe EverQuest and World of Warcraft probably have a lot of blame that they deserve too for making MMOs not that interesting. And in a weird way, when you look at like Japanese animes in particular, that there are more animes about people getting stuck in MMO games than there are actual MMO games that come out of Japan and are of any interest to play. You have things like Sword Art Online being an anime first, or manga then maybe an anime first, and then Bandai Namco making an MMO game around that, or something sort of like an MMO game. I'm not even sure it really is. Any of the Sword Art Online games are MMOs. So there's a big split there between what the Chinese audience either wants or is getting, and I assume it's just what they're getting, and what the rest of the world is getting as far as types of games. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called The Shattered Blade, which is bright neon lights and platforming. Just same old, same old. Now, I would say that one scene looks slightly interesting in still, but the rest of this looks incredibly boring. Except for this kind of looks interesting. I could almost understand if there was half as many particles here, and the background was always doing this kind of matrix-like particle dissolve rain effect on the background images. You might have an interesting artistic background. Now, an artistic background in a game doesn't really mean much. Meanwhile, looking at the gameplay here, you can see it's going to be an incredibly frustrating platforming type experience. This is $3.39 discounted, English and Chinese. Again, yeah, I wouldn't even call that a cheap Chinese game though. I would do it at least a favor of saying it's just not a up to quality, not reasonable quality game, but not terrible quality game. If I can make that difference, it's a mediocre Chinese game. Whereas this next game on Steam, Blockoid, is just an extremely low effort Tetris clone, which if you're going to make a Tetris clone, don't make it look terrible. Like, if you can only program a Tetris game, hire an artist that can make that Tetris game look amazingly good. So much so that it would look, ideally I'd have an artist make it look so good, so realistic that it would be hard to even realize that you are playing a Tetris game at the first glance. But Blockoid didn't do that. It's $3.74 discounted and English only with 9 achievements, which that is way too expensive for a Tetris clone also. Let's see. Mind Shield.
Precision. perfection.
Again.
To battle.
Take
To
this
battle.
one out. Gamatsu has an article here. Memories Off 20th anniversary website has been launched. What Memories Off is, I don't know. It's a visual novel game series called Memories Off. I haven't heard of it. But that's kind of the issue with a lot of these visual novels is that they came and then they didn't come to the West. So the first Memories Off game launched on September 30th, 1999 for the PlayStation. It was later ported to PC, Dreamcast, PS2, and PSP. There have been 8 entries in this main series and 10 spin-off series. Several original video animations have also been released. So several anime video, direct-to-video, at least that's what OVAs used to be, is direct-to-video videos, and not on TV. The latest entry, Memories Off Innocent File for Dearest, or Innocent File for Dearest, launched for the PS4, Switch, Vita, and PC in March. And so there's a video that I'll look at, but I can't show. I wish I could show them, but I can't. There's too much content ID going on.
Converting stored energy.
Oh, by the way, speaking of YouTube, it seems like a kind of large amount of YouTube channels got drastically demonetized as soon as the verification thing was not allowed to happen. So it probably was completely different departments, and this probably was just scheduled around, we want this all done by October or by this quarter or something like that. But from an outside perspective, it seems like they tried to de-verify a bunch of channels that they didn't want to have on there, either because they had the wrong political opinion or some other reason, which could be very petty and ridiculous. But it seems like they were going to unverify a bunch of channels, and that didn't work, so they then just handed that list of channels they wanted to unverify and told them to demonetize it. As for this anniversary video, it's really just showing, I can really show it off actually. It's really just a slow scroll here listing the games, I think, more than anything, and showing little images of some of the characters from the games, and the animation style here looks really good for this Memory Off series. It seems like it's probably a dating sim series, always focused on looking at the girls, so, but I doubt that means that you're playing as a girl character. But yeah, a lot of this animation style too, since this started in 1999, if we go back to like the very beginning, you are going for a 90s anime style. In a funny way, here's a schoolgirl outfit, so YouTube, so Valve's rules would not allow this game. But you can see this is the old 1990s style, and then they've mostly maintained that for the modern games, but there has been a slight shift over the years. But for a single series, it totally makes sense that you would try to stay on spec and not shift your animation style halfway through. You can do a little bit of that by introducing new characters, but you can't do a lot of it. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article, Pokemon Sword and Shield 24-hour live stream coming October 4th. I hate this. I want this gone so bad. I believe there's probably a way to do that. Let me see if I can figure out how to destroy U-Block Origin. Element Zapper mode. There we go. uBlock Origin has a ability called Element Zapper mode where you can just highlight something and get rid of it. It is wonderful, to say the least.
Reporting for battle.
That way when this happens, it'll kill all of them. So, yeah. Pokemon Sword and Shield 24-hour live stream coming. It's kind of weird. Suppose that means I could probably go into this and let's see if I can find the box. We can zap that and we can just zap that, and here's how you fix Tech Raptor. Just go into Element Zapper mode and we'll zap that, and there we've got a actual article that actually looks good and makes sense, and all the stuff otherwise down below doesn't need to be looked at. But yeah, that fixes a big problem right there. Honestly, I could probably do that on some of the other websites I look at, but I don't even think I go to too many websites that have that kind of problem with it's just advertising all over the place. Like, I guess maybe I could get rid of the sidebar on Twitter, that might work too. So YouTube advertisers on Twitter, as I'm talking about, yeah, I could potentially zap this whole sidebar, and then that would save me some space.
Get behind me.
They tweeted out some interesting things, just like make sure your spots are unskippable by sequencing creative. It's not even a sentence. Make sure your spots are unskippable, and they don't mean unskippable as in you set it up so that they can't be skipped. They mean that people don't want to skip it by sequencing creative that tells a story. That's not a sentence. It should be like creative content that tells a story. See how to captivate your audience through unique, varied ads and more. And then it links to something here. And here you have video and search are proven to work together. Discover the advantages of pairing YouTube with your search campaign in our newest research. These are all advertisements, basically, but that's what YouTube advertising is all about.
Must move quickly.
But it's nice to see as a content creator that YouTube advertising isn't telling too much different from what is being told to the content creators. Sometimes their messaging is a little bit different, but not by a lot. Alright, so here's the problem. The Element Zapper mode didn't save any of that, apparently. So now that we're at this next Tech Raptor article, we've got the sidebar back. We have this article, Minecraft announces a subscription service, Minecraft Realms Plus. Microsoft is certainly going in a weirdly different direction with Minecraft. But yeah, it seems like maybe some of the Zapper stuff disappeared, but some of it didn't. So, uBlock Origin, not perfect by any means. Or maybe there's some different way you're supposed to use the Element Zapper to make it permanent, and I don't know how that works. That's a very good possibility too. Yeah. It does get this weird feeling where it feels like Minecraft is constantly trying to screw you over and add more monetization to Minecraft, whereas Mojang is just trying to make Minecraft a growing, continuing to be interesting game. And that kind of also expands to the Xbox service too. Microsoft's going to have to be very, very careful with their Project Scarlet, their Xbox 2, whatever it's called, that it doesn't try to have always online DRM or subscription services that are more expensive, or it doesn't push a bunch of free-to-play garbage on the platform. It is only going to really succeed if it maintains a level of quality that it once kind of had. Like, most games on the Xbox 360, I think, were to a certain level of quality. You got medium, maybe even high quality, low quality games. How would I say that? Like, you would have like medium quality games and a few slightly less than medium quality games, and then the vast majority of everything else was either above medium quality games or quality games, particularly when you compare it to something like the Google Play Store or the iOS Store, where the vast majority of all the games on a store like that is garbage tier games, just the lowest of the low. But we have seen the Nintendo consoles and the eShop fill up with really bad quality games, and we're starting to see more and more bad quality games show up on the Microsoft storefront, the Xbox shop too. And it seems like with this next generation, if we're not careful, it's going to be zero curation for all the platforms. Like zero curation on PC, as it's always been. Zero curation for most of the storefronts on the PC. Zero curation on the PlayStation Store, because the PlayStation Network is full of garbage. They were the first ones to do that. The danger here is that they might be running headfirst into a second video game bubble being burst, just because that Nintendo seal of quality that wasn't there before Nintendo created it it has lost its luster. Like, yeah, if Nintendo seal of quality doesn't really mean anything, or Nintendo's name doesn't mean anything, and PlayStation and Microsoft's names don't mean anything, and Apple and Google's names don't mean anything as far as a level of quality of games that would be available on your system, eventually people might just, particularly if the United States and the world goes into a recession, we might start seeing a considerable lack of people buying new games and instead just playing trash tier free-to-play games, because that's all they can afford and that's all they care to even try and find. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Spaceland, which is a top-down strategy game. It says it's turn-based, so it's like a strategy placement XCOM looking game from the creators of Braveland. It's $13.49, which is rather expensive, and it has a bunch of language support. I'll put it on the follow list and we'll see. Technically, it looks like it's good enough that it should be on the wish list, but I want to give it some more thought than just the 5 seconds I'm willing to give it. I'm willing to look at it right now.
I must move quickly.
Converting stored energy. Converting stored energy. Job done.
That was a weird animation. What am I looking at? I cannot tell by the art style of what I'm looking at because I don't know if what I'm looking at. Alright, well, I just saw an animation where a girl pinches a guy's nipples, and there's a bunch of like weirdly animated things here. Looking at a game called We Met in May. It has a weird art style, and half of the animation is a girl just like pouring something, it looks like food or something, on the guy. So this feels like it's some kind of weird retelling of a couple getting together and making out. But the way it's animated is so weird, and it probably is just like a troll game if I was to guess. So yeah, I don't know about this one. I don't think it's making it to the fall list. This animation style is weird, but it's not like it wouldn't work. The problem mostly here is that you have these weird orange tones in the background that match the weird orange tones in the foregrounds. And then you have like super brightness here. There's a lack of coloring here, and it just doesn't look that good. There's anime references or just nerd otaku references also in this. I think this is a troll game though. I really do when looking at the video. It's $3.99 discounted. It says it's English only. It doesn't have any achievements. It does have a soundtrack. It's a collection of vignette games about those dates and the comedy that comes from getting to know someone. Yeah, this really feels like this is an indie type game. Like some kind of game jam type game. Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
Access denied.
And it feels like it very possibly is something made by like a couple of programmers that fell in love, and they're just telling their own story, and that's cute and all, but then why are you selling it for $3.99 and paying at least $100 to put it on Steam? Which honestly, I guess that would fix a lot of the quality of the games on Steam too, is if they just revisited the $100 fee and raised it up to heck, if you just raised it up to $300, I think you would convince most people to not put out these troll games, and while still tripling your money.
Job's done.
Let's see. Next we have an article here. Riot Games launches URF Academy online to support aspiring game designers. I don't know if Riot Games is really the company that you would want to get support from, but I suppose if you're making a game, any amount of support you can get, you should take. Like Riot makes MOBA games, League of Legends, I believe, and I believe Riot is also specifically owned by Tencent, or a significant portion of it is owned by Tencent, so yeah. This is on some website called oneesports.gg. I had never thought about having a .gg website for a video game website. I don't think too many people would like that domain. TechRaptor has an article here. Bullet points the Borderlands 3 weapons gallery. So seems like they've got several pictures that they're trying to talk about, or oh, they in the game you can actually put your guns up on the wall. That's nice. Like that's something that really would have been useful in Borderlands 2, because you had this vault that had a small number of guns that you could put on display, but not enough for sure.
Amazing.
It's kind of silly to still be writing articles though about Borderlands 3. At this point, either people have made the decision and they want to play the game and they'll get around to playing the game, or they're already playing the game, or you're not gonna play the game, or you're waiting until it comes to Steam, or you're waiting until it comes to a cheaper price point. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Our Lovely Escape. I don't think I know this developer, this publisher. It's tag sexual content and nudity visual novel. Going with more of the moe art style, where the characters are just a little bit shorter, a little bit more younger looking, even though they in this case seem to be depicted as working a job, which would put them at least in high school. They also don't seem to be shown as any of them wearing school outfits, and more, unless this is a school outfit. These all look like working job career outfits. $8.99. The mature content is locked behind the free DLC. That's nice. That way you can play it. It's English and simplified Chinese. That's a little surprising, because this animation style looks rather good for a Chinese language game and no Japanese. Now, this might actually be a Japanese developed game that just they're not selling the English language, they're not selling the Japanese language outside of Japan. That sometimes happens. I'll put this on the follow list. We're still in a weird position where we very likely aren't ever actually going to play any visual novels, but the wish list can be a little bit aspirational in that sense, and so that there are things on it that I may never actually get around to actually playing. Next, we have a Gamma Sutra article. Tencent becomes the largest shareholder in Conan Exile's developer Funcom. I feel like Funcom has been around for a long time, so this is a bit of a change. They picked up a 29% stake, which I guess that means, the way that's phrased, that it's up to 29% stake that they own, not an additional 29% stake. What does this really mean? Probably not much. Like, Conan Exiles did not succeed. It had a small chance to succeed, but it didn't put out a finalized product fast enough, and instead lingered in kind of an early access state for years now, it feels like. So yeah, and the next Conan game that gets made will just be as bad as the last one, because the one before that was just as bad as the one before that. So yeah, I'd have to kind of do a deep dive and see if Funcom ever made or released anything of interest. Just because I recognize their name doesn't mean that they ever made anything. There is plenty of things that are mostly owned by THQ Nordic now, that made little games here and there, Looney Tune games and Nickelodeon games and things like that the name would be slightly recognizable to me, but they never made anything that was of any quality.
Come in. Our little
We're moving over
tavern
to the
is
European
like an
account.
oasis in the desert.
TechRaptor has an article here. Nintendo announces brain training game for the Switch. They frankly should announce a brain training game for every console that they release. And they pretty much do. The big difference I would say here is that brain training games probably don't serve much of a audience as much as they used to, because you could get something like that for free on your phone. So this is a TechRaptor page, by the way, that was before I did the element zapper. So we have these elements here and this element here that I think I zapped before, so in this element here. So when I reload this page, let's see if any of that goes away. No. Maybe it would have to be a shift reload, but yeah. Every single one of those 3 advertisements still stays. So I'm gonna have to, if I want those permanently gone, I'm gonna have to do more work than what I had hoped I would have to do. Alright, we need to win as Paladin and Priest, so let's play a little bit of Priest. And I'm at rank 17 right now, so I might as well just play casual, because I don't think I'm going to make it up any higher. Since we're about to end the month. Gamer Sutra has an article here. Cuphead has sold 5 million copies in 2 years. Cuphead major success. Still haven't gotten around to buying it or playing it, unfortunately.
I must protect the wild.
Just one of many games that frankly are priced probably the way they should be priced, but because they're not on discount, it's hard to justify purchasing them at full retail. And 2 years in, you're getting a direct admission there that it probably won't go on sale in the next 6 months or so by much. Maybe when the new DLC is about to come out, maybe then it would go on sale, but I bet it doesn't. Next we have a game on Steam called Cube World, which is just clearly a Minecraft clone. It's already mixed reviewed. It's $19.99. It's English only as far as languages. Yeah, nothing here makes me think that this would be original or interesting in any way.
I wonder.
Right away.
Free your mind.
Next we have a game on Steam called Stormwind EX, S-T-U-R-M Wind. It's a side-scrolling shooter game that has a level of animation polish to it that's higher than most. So I don't think I'd really want to play these types of games anyways, but I'm gonna be kind of generous and put this on the follow list and see if it gets like a very large reception. The problem here is that 6 months to a year from now, when I do the follow list cleanup, I wouldn't be surprised if this still has only 2 user reviews, just because there's so many bad side-scrolling shooting games out there that the Steam recommendation engine would just not have a way of telling you that this one actually looks different or actually looks good.
Move quickly.
It says $10.39.
Right away.
And discounted, and it's English and German. It has 16 levels and 3 difficulty levels, which having multiple difficulty levels does increase the odds of me actually wanting to play it, because, you know, if I could turn it to easy and actually have a chance of winning, that would be great. Although I probably would just need an infinite lives ability. Next, we have an article from Komatsu for the PC, PS4, Switch, and Xbox One. R-Type Final 2 second crowdfunding campaign launches October 1st, and the Tokyo Game Show 2019 demo gameplay video is out. A second crowdfunding campaign to release a R-Type game seems incredibly ridiculous. The first crowdfunding game had more than 8,000 backers and raised nearly $1 million. Apparently, mid-September, they ended the crowdfunding. I don't know if they actually finished the crowdfunding and then they're just doing a second one. It's labeled as a second chance for potential backers who missed the previous campaign. So the argument that they're making is that the previous campaign ended too fast and more people wanted to back it. So they're doing a second backing. I think that's highly suspect and kind of ridiculous. And I feel like Bandai owns R-Type. But apparently not. It seems to be like it's a company called Granzella, which I've never heard of. And if I look at this video, yeah, it looks like an R-Type game, which a modern graphics side-scrolling shooter game, much like the other one we just looked at. I don't know, that seems a little iffy, to say the least. A little crazy to try and have try and have two crowdfunders. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Minecraft Earth release date announced, but there's a catch. So what's the catch? Mojang has stated that a lucky few people will be able to get their hands on the upcoming game before the year is over. The catch, however, is when everyone else will be able to get it. Minecraft Earth is the augmented reality game that I think is more in early beta, maybe even alpha state. And yeah, it's kind of more of an experiment than anything else. And by the time Minecraft's Earth is out, Pokemon Go will have been out for years, so I doubt too many people will have a major desire to go back to it. Go and play a different kind of augmented reality game.
Right away.
Here we go, we should be fine. Moving on, Gamasutra has an article. Big Fish Games donates $250,000 to the National Breast Cancer Foundation, which I guess is probably one of the good breast cancer foundations, not the Susan G. Komen one that doesn't really do anything and just sues people for using the color pink. Genoa said, and that's how I understand what they really do. Big Fish Games, mostly known in my mind for putting out nearly on the weekly basis a hidden object game on Steam, but I imagine they also make just generic mobile games every now and then.
Your rage sustains me.
we're gonna run into a point here where I just am gonna look at games and nothing but games. And I'm starting to wear out my voice too. This would be a great day to cut it short and actually not talk as much. So let's try and burn through these games a little bit faster. We have a game here called Alien Squatter. It looks like garbage. I'm gonna leave it at that. $5.99 English full audio. It's just not animated in the way I want it to be. It looks like it might be an RPG Maker game that actually made their own art, which is somewhat interesting and an improvement than the standard RPG Maker games. Otherwise, it's just a RPG game. Either way, it's still not visually appealing.
I just want some peace and quiet!
TechRaptor has an article here. Minecraft Builders and Biomes brings block building to the tabletop. This is, I guess, more information about that board game. Unless there's 2 Minecraft board games coming out. I don't think so. Honestly, if you're gonna play a board game, I don't think there's really any big reason why it needs to be themed. Like, stick with some of these traditional board games or parlor games that have worked for a long time and make sense as far as gameplay balance. TechRaptor has an article here. Borderlands 3 in-game overview. Loot as far as the eye can see. I heard some talk about this, and I won't go into a lot of detail. Maybe this article will explain it more, but it does seem like even when you're at the top level, you're still getting a lot of loot. It seems like there's several different ways that you can kind of instance yourself and run through sections when playing with other players and get more loot. There is a better emphasis in Borderlands 3 than any of the previous Borderlands games. It seems like to get good loot that is interesting and something you really want to play with. Whereas Borderlands 2 and Borderlands 1 was even worse, but Borderlands 2 is still pretty bad about having you find one good gun every 10-15 hours, and then that is it, and then just a ridiculous amount of vendor trash. Moving on, Gamasutra has an article here. Rockstar wants to capture the appeal of Red Dead Redemption 2 single player in online. I'm sure they would love to do that, but in the current state, nobody really cares about Red Dead Redemption 2's online service. It was the incredibly imbalanced microtransaction thing where a can of beans cost more than you could realistically ever mine in gold, as far if you're gonna play it free to play. And even if they fix those issues, I still don't think people inherently want to play Red Dead Redemption 2 online. They just want the good story, which that's really where it would boil down to. I guess we'll go to Paladin because the priest did not win there. Yeah, I don't want an online experience for a game like Red Dead Redemption 2. Here we go, we run into a glitch. If I want to play Red Dead Redemption, any of the Red Dead games, I want to do the main story and maybe some of the side quests, but I probably would want to have an accelerated experience even then. Moving on, we have a game here called Third Eye, which seems like it's a point-and-click adventure. It might be a horror-style Chinese point-and-click adventure, from the looks of it. $14.99 English, Chinese, and Japanese. I'll give this a follow. I am a sucker for point-and-click adventures, although this is really just labeled as an adventure. It seems pretty obvious to me it's probably a point-and-click adventure. Some of these screenshots are also at kind of a 4:3 ratio, so this is weird. This is also being published directly by Sony Music Entertainment, which is not Sony Interactive Entertainment Interactive, SEI. So that's weird. It's so weird you have different divisions of Sony trying to publish different types of games. And I can see the end of the tunnel, so we don't have that many games. That's nice. And once we run through all the news and games, I am perfectly fine ending this stream. I feel like I probably did curate a little bit. Get rid of some of the low tier garbage. But I kind of also, it's fair to say, I do kind of craft a narrative. If I see a low effort Sykes game, I normally keep it to show it and say, hey, these are still happening. In general, to craft that narrative to say, yes, this is my perception of reality in the Steam storefront, and there is evidence to back that up. Similarly, if I see a low effort Chinese or Russian game, I push that. Maybe even a Portuguese game, I might keep one of those. When in reality I could just close them all and push kind of a false narrative that only good games come out on a weekly basis on Steam, but that would be a very, very false narrative. Moving on, we have a game called Duck in Town, A Rising Knight, which, if the animation was a little bit better here, that might be an interesting game. But notice how the angle of the camera just shifts wildly here. Like sometimes you're really far away, sometimes you're really close, sometimes it looks like you're having conversations. Doesn't seem like there's really a gameplay mechanic at all in this. It's $5.94. It's English and Spanish. If the entire game looked like this animation did here, I'd be a lot more interested in it.
I wonder.
But yeah, there's nothing here that deserves to be on the follow list. Let's see.
Move quickly.
We have an article here from another website. The Strong receives $700,000 federal grant to fund an exhibit on the impact of video games. I think we already talked about this article. The Strong Museum, the Strong National Museum of Play. With this grant, they'll be showing off. I think it was a decent selection of games, but not really the oldest of the old games. A lot of these museums seem to heavily want to focus on, let's get Halo on display, but let's not bother to get like Pong on display, because Pong is old and boring, but Pong also was like the first video game ever, and it is historically relevant. And yeah, I get it. A lot of museums, particularly if you're catering towards a younger audience, a child audience, it's really more about engaging kids and being entertaining than it is about being historically accurate or informative. Like, I imagine if you take a kid to a natural history museum to see dinosaurs, they're going to remember they saw dinosaurs, but not really particularly learn or know anything about the dinosaurs.
Access denied.
Next, we have a game on Steam here called DOSK, which looks like it's a League of Legends clone, if I was to guess. It's some kind of MOBA clone. It's $4.99. It's single player only, oddly. It's English only. This really looks like a low effort Chinese game. But let's just call it a low effort Western game. Sure, why not? Looks terrible. Terrible name, DOSK. Defense of the Soul Keepers. That's what it stands for, apparently. Yep, nothing more needs to be said about that game. It's not making it to the fall list. Scroll this.
Access denied. Job done.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Dead Simple 21, which doesn't strike me as actually playing 21 or blackjack. If anything, it seems like it's some other form of solitaire from some mobile game port, clearly. And even if this was a mobile game, it's using the bottom half of the screen for indicators, and that's not gonna work well on a cell phone either. It's just $3.99 discounted, English only, nothing more needs to be said. It's garbage. Not good enough to be on Steam. Honestly, if Steam just had a ratio, like a video ratio limitation, where they said, your screenshots don't look like they are in 16:9 ratio, we're not going to let your game be sold, because we only accept 16:9 and 4:3, and that's it.
Converting stored energy.
There we go. Gamer Sutra has a video here, crowdfunding your video game in 2019. This is a GTC video. So we'll see that there will be other game developers encouraged to crowdfund their games in 2019, and I'm sure 2020 also. Whereas ideally I'd like to see less game companies crowdfunding. I'd like to see none of them crowdfunding, frankly. I forgot I was supposed to be using the hero ability. Like, if I just use the hero power every turn, then I'll get one of the daily quests done. Check out there's an article here. Twitch Prime announces its October games. Apparently Adam Wolf, Deadlight, Director's Cut, Serial Cleaner, Stranger Things, Stranger Things 3 the game, and The Walking Dead Michonne. Stranger Things 3 the game will be weird because they've just announced Stranger Things Season 4, which I'm a little surprised about. But whatever. I guess that's fine. It's not really going to affect me. I definitely didn't watch Stranger Things Season 3 in a way that helped my enjoyment of it. I kind of just got bored with it, or was not in a good mood to watch it, and kind of rushed through it. But I would say I think Season 3 kind of just does the same thing that Season 1 does and Season 2 does, and they didn't change too much. They just introduced new characters and introduced a new location and introduced a slightly different time frame. But that's kind of it. It's still the exact same bad guy. It's still the exact same type of concept. They didn't take it in a different direction. At least Season 2 had a brief moment when 11 ran away to New York and they ran into other people with abilities. That there was something different there to
my side.
focus on and tell a different type of tale. And even when 11 was looking for her mother, that was
Job's done.
slightly more to deal with. Now that season 4 is happening, it's gonna be weird, to say the least. They really need to take it in a different direction. They really need to set up for a 5th season to wrap everything up completely. Otherwise, you're in this danger of
I just want
the
some peace and quiet.
season Stranger Things becoming
Injured?
way too long and way too repetitive, which I think you could make similar arguments for things like Broken Mirror. Like Broken Mirror may be at the danger of becoming way too long and way too repetitive, with their latest season really just being 3 episodes. Well, regardless, I really don't have time to talk about Netflix shows, but might as well mention it. Next, we have a game on Steam, Android Helipad. MS Paint looking graphics. It's called a helipad, but I don't even see anything that looks like a helipad. I guess maybe you're playing as a character that is in a helicopter of some sort. Looks like it's mostly just either a chopper or copter clone, or you're in just a generic platformer. This is $6.99, no discount, English only, 11 achievements. That's rather expensive. Way too expensive.
Is someone injured?
And I guess we'll start doing this.
Right away.
Then attack here.
Job's done.
Gamma Sutra has an article here. We already talked about that article. That was just a duplicate page. Right. Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Forest Spiders, and it looks like it's an asset flip game where you're running around fighting spiders. Which, I suppose you could start a RPG Witcher-like game like that, but I don't think you'd want to have too much of that going on. Arachnophobia does affect a significant amount of people, so it does make a sense to not have games where a major enemy is a giant spider or a major enemy is a giant snake. 99 cents English only this game is, and I wouldn't even spend that much on it. Okay. Do this. Do this. And then do this.
Right away.
Attack. Susan Wojcicki put out on the 27th. Proud of all you at YouTube game creators who are fundraising for St. Jude's this month. Thank you for everyone for supporting such an important cause and raising awareness of childhood cancer. She doesn't name any of these YouTubers. And a quick casual glance here. I don't recognize any of these people at all. I have no idea who any of these are. Maybe that's Jacksepticeye there, but that's kind of it. Like, if these are all supposed to be YouTube gaming creators, no clue at all. Here she's tweeting something in German. And then there was a new YouTube space in Berlin. I don't think there's anything more that she's tweeted out that's important. I don't think half the things she tweets out are important, actually. But yeah, either I'm completely disconnected with what the modern YouTube gaming creators are, or the current landscape for people that are promoted as gaming creators are awful. And yeah, I don't know if there's anything else to say there. I definitely know my channel and my content, for whatever quality it actually is definitely different than most gaming creators. I'm not trying to get a bunch of 9-year-olds, to use PewDiePie's term, to watch me. I'm trying to get people who actually have the money to buy games and who need critical reviews to watch me, or people that just enjoy a calmer, more intelligent, more critical look at games. Well, that just reset, so we're at reset as we were playing. So we ended the European account on rank 17, and that'll put us down to rank 21, I believe. Rank 20, okay. Well, that changes our layout a little bit. So now I need to play ranked. Silence Priest. Next we have a game on Steam called Dice Defenders that seems like you roll dice and the dice give you different places where you could place tower defense locations. But in general, this is still a low effort tower defense game. It's $4.99, English only, 46 achievements, it looks like. Yeah, totally not making it to the fall list. Yeah, let's re-roll that. Next we have a game on Steam called Life Redemption, which probably is a Dark Screenshot Syndrome horror game. Although it's tagged as an RPG, and I see an actual weapon in here and an actual life bar. So this might not be an asset flip game. Maybe. It's so freaking dark. I don't see anything here. Seems like you're just walking around. So yeah, this looks like it's an unfinished product, whatever it is. It's discounted to $2.69 and it's English and Chinese, so I have to assume it's a cheap Chinese game trying to sell itself as something that it really isn't. I want to use the hero ability as much as possible. TechRaptor has an article here looking down the fairway in What the Golf. So they're reviewing this Apple Arcade game that I think most people would say is one of the best Apple Arcade games. But there's been like way too much coverage of Apple Arcade games, and apparently this is on the Epic store also. What I haven't seen so far is any review that actually gives a score. So I wonder if TechRaptor is giving up any summary paragraphs and any score numbers. It would be kind of nice if they just put the score and the summary at the top. But I don't know, they might be doing something really crazy. They may have decided to just not score games anymore. And if that was the case, I would have to really reevaluate whether I even need TechRaptor in my life anymore at that point. Because they don't really break any new news that aren't just advertisements for things like Mitaku or other things that they're partnered with or they get affiliate links from.
Job's done.
Next we have a game on Steam, Paranormal Files, Hookman's Legend Collector's Edition. It's a hidden object game from Big Fish Games. We've seen lots of these. $12.59, which seems to be where they've locked down their collector's editions. They were getting up to like $13. $12.59 is still pretty expensive, though, when you realize that if you were to buy every single one of these that comes out, you'd be buying one every week or so, maybe every 2 weeks. Alright. Silence that.
Job's done.
And turn. Let's see. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Get a job, Deep Silver Volition, Hyperconnect Studios and more hiring. Green Park Sports in Calabasas, California, Deep Silver Volition in Champaign, Illinois. Ringling College of Art and Design in Sarasota, Florida. Hyperkinetic in Los Angeles too. That's for level designers, game art full-time faculty, UI artists, outsourcing managers. Outsourcing manager, not a job you really would ever want. You're gonna just have people angry at you at all times. This. And then this. I played that out of order. And then this. Kill this.
That didn't quite hit the mark.
It definitely didn't. I screwed that up. Next game is tag sexual content and nudity. Have to be careful on Steam because I definitely have run into some screenshots that are not YouTube family friendly. Alright. You need to use the hero power 10 more times and just draw cards in general. Next game we have on Steam is called Nanairo? Nanairo? Maybe? Reincarnation? It's a visual novel, sexual content, and nudity anime. Animation style looks pretty good. Not seeing any real lines of dialogue or anything. This animation though seems kind of different from this animation. It's really far away and it's a different palette tone and in shadow. This is $26.99 discounted. English with full Japanese audio. My guess, and by the way, this probably is a schoolgirl outfit if we were gonna just leave it so Valve doesn't really know what their rules are at all. My guess is that this is probably a well-known one. It's from Sekai Project, so I'll put it on the follow list. We'll see what the reviews are, and we'll move forward from there. Which is to say, we almost certainly will never move forward from there. Next, we have a game on Steam called Ruins to Rumble, which says it's a strategy 2D simulation. So it's a civilization sim in 2D. I think that would be pretty boring, and by the looks of it, it looks pretty boring. Feels like the camera is zoomed out far too much. Feels like you really couldn't build very much. It's early access, $8.09, English only, and it's part of a whole bundle that they're trying to sell. No, I don't think there's a concept there. Yeah. I don't know how you could do a 2D building simulation. Even things like SimCity, which, like, SimCity was a Windows 95 game originally, so even that was top down, not 2D side perspective. I suppose top down it was actually 2D, but not from a side perspective. It just seems illogical to be looking from the side to try and manage single groups of buildings and call it a city simulator or a civilization simulator. Next we have a game on Steam called War Theater Blood of Winter, which this looks like this is, I don't know what it is, some kind of strategy game of some sort. Seems like a strategy placement RPG, but then it jumps into this 3D fighting graph. That doesn't make sense. This whole thing feels like it might be a mobile game trying to turn a PC game into a mobile game, and all we're seeing is the camera move left and right. This is free to play with in-app purchases. That explains probably everything I need to know with 12 achievements. Yeah. This does not look like this would be a good game. That's one hero power. We need 9 more. Next we have a game on Steam called Ace of Space. It's an asteroid clone where when you shoot something the entire screen shakes, guaranteed to give you motion sickness and make your eyes go cross-eyed. Terrible concept. And really a low effort, just asteroids clone, which we still are seeing these. Still seeing a decent collection of these happening on a weekly basis. Discounted to 59 cents, English full audio, 40 achievements, so clearly an achievement game. I'm wearing out my voice like crazy. Just want to finish the games so that we don't have anything left over for Wednesday, because this is the point where news starts to come out, is on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of a week. Let's see. Alright, next we have a game on Steam here called The Glider's Journey. This looks a little bit low polygonal, but it actually seems like it might be a real game. Like I'm seeing an actual flying around, an actual attempt at designing levels. There's a gliding mechanic in Lego City Undercover that's awful. Which is crazy because you have a jetpack, but you just can't use it in some scenarios. This is $4.49. This is a bunch of language support. Third-party EULA, which that might be a red flag, but I'm willing to put this on the follow list. This might be a game worth playing. Now, it kind of felt like this would have been a VR game, but there's nothing here that really shows a VR. And then there's these rings you fly through in a different gameplay mode, it seems. This could also be a really small game though. Like, you might have 2 or 3 things to do for $4.99. And in all honesty, what you really should have is a
My paddle
you should have a gliding mini game inside some other kind of game, not have it be the main thing and the main function. Next we have on Steam Hentai Killer, another one of these low effort asset flip first person shooter games. Why these are allowed on Steam I have no idea. It's tagged nudity and sexual content. I wouldn't be surprised if it actually doesn't have that. 59 cents. There's a whole bundle that should be kicked off of Steam. English full audio. Let's see. Do this. And do this. And then play this.
I just want some peace and quiet!
Next, we have a game on Steam called Acronist Mini Happy Returns. It seems like it's a pun on
In the light's name.
an anachronism.
In the light's name.
So you're going back in time, and then it puts you in kind of an RPG Maker style game at that point, which was totally unexpected looking at this screenshot. Or even at the beginning here you have an animation that does not give you any feeling that this was going to be an RPG Maker game, or that kind of like a low effort RPG. $11.99, English only, 10 achievements. Low quality visual RPG games still can't make it to the fall list, even if they do have a slight twist to what they are. So copy that, and then do that, and then play this.
Job's done.
Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam here called Let's Go Skiing VR, which might be a worthwhile skiing game, where you're chasing some kind of spirit animal down the ice, which I don't think you would ever see a moose or spirit. I guess a spirit animal could run on ice just fine, but I don't think you'd see any real creatures running that fast on snow or ice.
Hey, I got you, friend.
Maybe you have a bear that could do that. Bear's paws are wider and more flat, or a deer would probably get stuck in the snow pretty quickly. This is a VR game, of course. It's discounted to $8.49, English, Russian, and simplified Chinese. That's a big red flag. So, really don't want to put it on the fall list, but I guess I will. We have yet to find I don't think I've found a good skiing VR game or skiing game in general on Steam, so until I can find something better, I guess I'm stuck with what I got.
I just want some peace and quiet!
Job's done.
So this is kind of an update to a story from maybe 2 weeks ago. At Games being sued by Walgreens and Bandai Namco. Let's see. At Games, a manufacturer of plug-and-play game devices. Bandai Namco sued them over them making a Miss Pac-Man game they didn't have the license for. Now Walgreens is alleged non-payment over unsold game units. Over a different issue. So it seems like At Games in particular is in double trouble now, getting sued by two different companies for two different reasons. So non-payment of unsold units means that they ship the units back to the manufacturer, or they had some kind of agreement to destroy the units and get paid for the unsold units. That I don't even know how that would really work. You would think it would be the opposite, that At Games would be suing Walgreens for Walgreens not paying for the units, but you know, some these big storefronts, they have such weird contracts that they make money regardless of whether something sells or not sometimes. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Undercrude, which looks like it might be an FTL clone. So I liked FTL, but I did not like how difficult it was. There's been several of these in the works. This is just another, I guess, that we can put on the fall list. It's in early access. It's $10.79 discounted, which is too expensive, and it's English only. This might be something, it might be nothing. Really comes down to whether people like it or not. It says it has single player, but it seems to be focusing more on 1 to 4 co-op gameplay, so that might be, although 1 co-op means just single player. This might be a case of it not being the kind of game for me in particular. Okay.
Your magic shall not save you.
There's nothing to say, so we'll just playing the cards.
I'm almost out of cards.
Next we have a game called Angel and Demon, like Deemon, that's misspelled. One hell of a quest. This is a modern looking animated point and click adventure looking game, which definitely has my attention. We'll see how well it plays and how well it's written. That's really where point and click adventure games fall apart. Like Deponia and then Harvey are great examples of games made by, is it Daedalic? That looked very interesting at first, but then turned pretty boring halfway through. This has English full audio, which is good for a point and click adventure, and Russian and German support, which might be a problem, but not so much for point and click adventure games, because a significant amount of point and click adventure games have audiences in German speaking countries. Here's a game that absolutely has no tags whatsoever for it. It's probably already removed from Steam. This one's called Love Chan. It's another virtual desktop pet, so not really a program, not really a game at all. Just characters on your desktop, and that's it. And then some of these are just straight up blurred, so there's an implication of full nudity on them. 59 cents, discounted, says it supports a bunch of languages and has 50 achievements, when there's literally nothing you can do on them except for click on them, and then that makes these little particles fly out. Yeah, so It's kind of a great example. One more hero power I need to play. It's really a great example of just how cynical some of these terrible games can be. Next we have a game with a bunch of Asian characters, and it's called Gold Express. It's rated very positively already. It's fast-paced asymmetric competition, it says. What is it, though? It looks like it's probably something like Dead by Daylight. It's probably not something I could play. Early access, $12.74. English, Chinese, and French, that's an odd combination. It's multiplayer only, online multiplayer I assume. Mostly. So yeah. This looks like it's another attempt on like a Dead by Daylight asymmetric. One person plays as the bad guy and then all the other people try to escape or defeat the bad guy. I still don't feel like these gameplay methods are great. But if Gold Express looks interesting to you, check it out, I guess. We have about 10 more articles to cover, 10 more games. Next we have a game on Steam here called Column on the Sea, which, looking at these screenshots, this feels like this is a simplistic indie Japanese or Chinese game, but the most of it looks like it is just a platforming game, maybe a bit of a Metroidvania type. I really kind of hate the color palette here, though. So,
Is someone injured?
like the red on red, and then you have a power jump down and you can shoot something. It doesn't really make sense. Yeah, in a weird way, I don't think most games make sense if you're just gonna have basically an anime girl walking around. They don't have a significant amount of magical powers, or at least look like they have some kind of magical abilities. It doesn't really make sense. And this feels like it's mostly just a collection of bosses. Column on the Sea is $9.34 discounted. It's English only. Says there are 15 different abilities, 100 upgrades to discover, a huge dungeon with an expansive hub area. I really don't believe it. In a weird way. Like, usually I don't just straight up say I don't believe what they're saying in their description, but honestly, from what I'm seeing here, I kind of don't believe what they're saying in the description. And even if they are technically accurate and true, which they probably are, it just looks so bad visually. You cannot have so many tones of red on top of each other. So yeah, that's not going to go on the fall list. That might be a hidden gem that somebody tells me about 10 years from now, but almost certainly not. Even if it is a hidden gem, I'm not sure anybody else would give it the time of day. Next we have a game on Steam called Infinity Battlescape, which looks like it's a fly around space game, which if these screenshots would load. I'm being a little bit more generous for these fly around space games. I probably am going to turn around and be a lot less generous when I do the follow list cleanup, but I'm opening myself up mentally a little bit more to want to play something like that, or at least consider playing something like that. Let's go. As far as Infinity Battlescape in particular, though, it's early access. It's $33 with a 5% discount. It's an online MMO. It's English with full audio. So this is totally not one that I could ever get into. And I think you probably have a very low chance that this, as an MMO, would succeed. It'll just not have a big enough player base, if I was to guess. I could always be wrong about that, but my heavy suspicion is that you're not going to run into a MMO from an unrecognizable named company that succeeds. I think World of Warcraft barely succeeds as an MMO. Next, we have a game on Steam called Master of Linkard, and this looks like it plays really poorly, and it's probably some port from like a tablet game or a mobile game. The animation is weird. Here we have another extremely thin neck, extremely small chest, shoulders at least, and large bust, and then this huge hip, and then one assumes that's a dress, but there's definitely a misproportioning here. And then there's some other elements in this that don't really play or make sense. How is this a card game? Why is this in a card game? Why is this in a card game? This is $5.59 discounted, English and Chinese. Yeah, and I think this probably is a cheap Chinese game. I don't think you can call it much of anything else. Let's see. Well, this next game is tagged partial nudity, but I think we'll be alright. We have Code Vein is out. Code Vein is marked very positive for Bandai Namco. It is the anime-esque Dark Souls that is definitely not getting as much coverage as it deserves. Jim Sterling loves it, which, okay. That means some small amount. But yeah, check it out. This is gonna leave the following list and go to the wish list. It's $59 right now, unless you buy the deluxe edition, which is $79.99, which is probably the right move because it has a season pass. It could be that this game doesn't succeed very well and it goes down in price pretty quickly. But if you are a big fan of the Dark Souls series, you should be playing Code Vein right now, I would argue. If you are a big fan of anime vampire stories or vampire stories or anime games in general, you should be checking it out. This will be a very interesting experiment to look back 6 months to a year from now, to even like 5-10 years from now, and see if Bandai Namco potentially lost a lot of sales because they went for something that would appeal more to their main focused Japanese market, instead of just replacing the skins of Code Vein and making yet another Dark Souls game that looked like a Dark Souls game because it has just realistic fantasy animation in it. I would heavily recommend, if you're even slightly interested in Code Vein, that you go out and seek a playthrough. I personally won't get around to playing it unless somebody wants to gift me the game, which would be appreciated, I suppose. It has character customization too. Take that for what it is. And so let's just cover the rest of the news now and not play another game, because we've done enough of the daily quests to buy us enough time for Wednesday and not have to worry about it tomorrow when the new solo expansion happens, which that'll probably be a really long stream. So we also have this game on Steam called Everstopped. This is kind of like a fast-paced gun training simulator game. You're jumping and dodging, and there's a bunch of things coming at you, and you have to shoot some things. It seems like it's a pretty simplistic concept, but it looks kind of nice. Unfortunately, English language is not supported. It's $1.99, and it's French only. So you would have to, if this looked interesting to you, just a kind of fast-paced dodge and shoot, almost like a game trainer, but trying to actually be its own thing. If you wanted to play this, though, I think you would have to probably work your way through a French menu, which you probably could figure that out. This is actually pretty ridiculous, though, and no person in their right mind should be training this way. Like even SWAT or Special Forces or SEAL Team 6 should not be training to dodge things and shoot at the same time. Moving on, I won't put that on the follow list. We have a game called Sea Bubble, which seems like it's a player versus player seahorse racing game. It's rated very positively. It's $2.99. It's English only. It has local multiplayer only, though, so there's no single player. If you had kids and you didn't want them to play a violent game, I think this might be a bit of a chance of just like a kind of non-violent racing game. Doesn't seem like you can do anything. Maybe you shoot bubbles at each other. Maybe that's it, but you would have to have multiple kids to play local multiplayer, and you would definitely be risking your $2.99 on this. Well, maybe it's not completely non-violent. Maybe it's more a half violence, Mario Kart-esque violence game. I guess that would be a better way of labeling it the more I look at it. Next we have a game called, is that Chikara? AAW Wrestling Factory? This is a free-to-play game where I think you're playing a wrestling simulator. I don't think there's actually a game here. Free, English only, as far as I can see in the video. Seems to just be a ridiculous character creator, which Fire Pro Wrestling I think already does this better, and it doesn't seem like there's actually any game in it otherwise. Like, I don't see anything that actually has the wrestlers wrestling, so that's not making it to the follow list. Let's see. I don't know if we mentioned this article before or not, but TechRaptor had the Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening review. Really don't need to read their review. There's some things we could say. That there was a gag in the original Link's Awakening Japanese version where you met a mermaid and she asked you to help her find her bra. In the remaster that was released, they changed it to a necklace, and they changed it to a necklace when they ported it to the original English release also. So retroactively they've kind of retconned the bra gag, which fine, whatever. I mean, it is a kid's game. As far as censorship goes, that's one of the smallest and most understandable bits of censorship possible. Like, if I had a 5-year-old that was going to repeat the word bra in public over and over again as soon as they had heard the word bra, I would be perfectly happy that they had taken that word out. So the thing I guess to point out more here is the review summary for new TechRaptor now looks like this. They give it a 9.0. They have apparently dropped the good, very good moniker. They're just saying 9.0. One assumes that's 9.0 out of 10 still. The summary is here. Link's Awakening takes everything excellent about original release and adds a fantastic shine to it. It already might have been one of the best Zelda titles to date, and it's only improved here. It's runs poorly though. That's the problem. Is I think Link's Awakening, if it ever got to PC, that would be amazing. But if it just got a patch and ran smooth on a Switch and a Switch Lite, that's really what should be happening. The pros are great story, dungeon creator. I don't know how much people are going to use the dungeon creator. Brilliant world building, and the looks are charming. The cons are slight frame hiccups, and it could have had some improvements in it that it definitely didn't. Like little quality of life improvements. Is a good comparison between the Game Boy Color version and what the new version looks like. There is also some underlying complaints that would be hard to address with Link's Awakening. If you changed how the gameplay played, if you changed how things really looked, the gameplay mechanics in particular, some people would have been very happy about that because it is some very basic pattern recognition that you're doing against some of the bosses. So some people would have been happy about that, but then a lot of people would have also been upset that you changed anything. And that's inherently what you run into a problem with remaking any game, is that if people have nostalgia for the original, they want it to play and feel exactly like the original, even if it looks better. Next we have a game on Steam, Aokana, 4 Rhythms Across the Blue. This is a visual novel tagged with nudity and sexual content. Seems like you've got quite the harem of potential female mates. And the animation all looks good. And then again, if we go back here, I think that's technically a schoolgirl outfit. And frankly, that kind of is too. Maybe Valve has given up on that concept. These are definitely schoolgirl outfits. So here's a prime example of 3 characters in schoolgirl outfits. That actually is a different school outfit too. In a game tagged with sexual content and nudity. And that's the thing that Valve was using as its excuse to not allow some games on Steam. And yet this is a game on Steam from developers I don't recognize and publishers I don't recognize. This is $31.49. These things are expensive. Full Japanese audio, a big plus. English, of course, and Chinese. And I guess I put this on the fall list. We'll give it a little bit of time and think about it. Of course, these games I'm almost certainly never going to actually buy or cover because YouTube will probably throw a fit about it, even if I spend a lot of effort censoring and blurring things. Next we have a troll game on Steam called Beachbody Bros. I felt like this deserved at least to be shown off though, because somebody put some effort into this, like this joke troll. Like this isn't just a low effort thing. So I guess maybe in the category of fun allowed, you are. I'm gonna show off this game. Never play this game or buy this game. It's a VR game for free, so the price is right too. So if you wanted a good joke for 5 minutes or so, English full audio, that's what you're gonna get here. Of course, if you'd done Beachbody Gals instead of Bros, or then all of a sudden it would be too offensive and not a joke at that point, and somebody would have a problem with it, and it wouldn't have been allowed on Steam almost certainly. So yeah. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called The Rain Time, which is a free-to-play. I would guess it might be a slideshow slash walking simulator kind of visual novel game. Yeah, doesn't seem like there's really any movement that happens here. It's early access, it's English, it's free. Check it out if you want. This might be a student project, but then why is it early access if it's a student project? Let's see. It's planned to be, the full game is planned to come out in spring 2020, so in a lot of ways this might just be a demo. Well, check it out now if you want to, but I'm not going to waste my time on things like that. Next we have a game called The Binding of You, which says it's based on The Binding of Isaac, but inspired by The Binding of Isaac, but this is not how The Binding of Isaac plays. It's shooting way faster than you normally would be shooting. It's way worse animated than The Binding of Isaac is. Like, The Binding of Isaac has an art style to it, and it sticks to the art style, and there's actual skill behind this. This is just terrible animation. 59 cents discounted, and suffering from a major problem. Never set yourself amongst a great game like The Binding of Isaac, because you will look very short in comparison. English full audio, it says 30%. And the thing here too is, I think you're potentially running into a lawsuit here, because you really can't use another person's license, their copyright, their title of their game, to promote your own thing. The Pepsi couldn't say just like Coca-Cola on their packaging if they wanted to. Maybe you could say it in a one offhanded reference, but if you say it more than once or twice, at that point you're potentially violating somebody's trademark, violating somebody's copyright. You're opening yourself up to a lawsuit at the very least. And final game we have here is written in Asian, and it's called Kaki Raid. It looks like it's a top-down placement strategy game. Probably a cheap Chinese game. It's nicely animated and looks like it might have some varied systems, but you can also see that there's a ton of text and a ton of complexity here, which tends to be a problem with Chinese games too. Early access, English not supported, free to play, with in-app purchases, Chinese. So yeah, Chinese games in particular. You would think that the pictorial based language of Chinese would make it easier for them to say more with less characters, and yet it seems not to do that sometimes in games, because there seems to be just a ton of text. Meanwhile, I'm looking at the Humble Bundle store. There's no new bundles worth mentioning, and I don't think there's really going to be any new announcements. We're in a good position, certainly, for me not to have to deal with any of that, because, well, any new things that happen we'll just talk about on Wednesday. So that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.